includes Surfside. And this morning, I've had an opportunity not only to participate in Mayor Levine Cava's briefing, intergovernmental briefing, but to sit down and talk with our national experts from NIST, which is the similar agency that reviews and comes in to decide whether a full investigation will be necessary for structural damage, building collapses. They were investigators in 9/11. They were investigators in a number of structural incidents around the country, and are the best of the best when it comes to making sure that they do a complete and thorough overview. They're in a preliminary investigation right now to determine whether or not they open a full investigation. I mean, I'm not an expert, but I would expect that it is natural that they would decide to do that. And their role is to very forensically review, as the process of going through the rubble, even during the search and rescue process, to help make sure that evidence is preserved, which they're working with the task force on debris to do that, to make sure that even with the Army Corps of Engineers that is embedded in their team, to take a look at some of the issues that have arisen anecdotally, but the issues like the questions around the structural damage to the pool, that area that has been mentioned, and other different points of weakness. They will look through that preliminary investigation and determine whether they open a full investigation, and that is triggered when they get a sense of, after their preliminary review, of whether or not any decisions and fact-finding that they engage in as a result of that investigation can have longer-term implications and recommendations for how we change federal oversight, federal law related to building construction and the kind of code enforcement decisions that will have to be made on the ground. So it's really important and very significant that they're here as early as they have been, because getting them here, embedded with the debris task force, making sure that they advise on how evidence should be preserved once law enforcement takes over, will give them a better chance of answering the question that I know I've been asked over and over. We all have been, okay, how are we going to deal with the long-term implications of this? Did this only impact just this building? We have, as we've said, structures like this all the way up the coastline, of the United States. And what NIST will be able to help do is, they're a fact-finding, not a fault-finding agency, and a long-term investigation of theirs would give us a chance, for me, as a member of Congress, to be able to input, to adopt changes in federal law that will help them make sure that when structures are built, that something like this could never happen again. So I'll continue to be engaged with our very seamless local, state, and national leaders so that we can make sure that we continue the whole of government approach where there's no daylight between any of us. Thank you so much, and thank you, Mayor Levine Cava, for all your work.
Thank you, Congresswoman. And Governor Ron DeSantis. Well, I had a chance to meet with a number of the urban search and rescue teams today, and as I have seen them, of course, over the last many days, but they've been going at it for over 100 hours straight. When there's danger, they run towards it. They obviously shepherded a lot of people to safety initially, and they have been every minute of every day since the building collapsed trying to identify survivors. They're putting themselves at risk in order to do that, not only because you could have additional collapse. You've had deep-seated fires that they've had to fight. It's been an incredibly hazardous environment, and they've been on the scene nonstop from the very beginning. So I just want to thank them for what they've done. We obviously have some other folks throughout the state that have been able to also come and supplement, but those teams here in South Florida, they're the best of the best. And we had the Israelis come in and take a look, and the Israelis told some of the families what those MiamiDade search and rescue folks did is exactly what we would have done, exactly what should have been done. And so I think it's a testament, our best in the country here in South Florida, some of the best in the world. Obviously, Israel coming over, they deserve a lot of credit for putting themselves out there. And obviously, the search continues, and it will not stop until there's a resolution. So thank you for that. We're also working in conjunction with FEMA, as well as in conjunction with both local government and private organizations to bring relief services to the family members, and that involves relocation assistance. It involves things like mental health counseling, and we have folks, we've beefed that up here on the ground, and what we want to do is, working with FEMA, identify all the families, get them registered face-to-face, which FEMA is doing and is doing a good job of, and be able to provide these services. I have the head of Volunteer Florida is on the ground to help coordinate with all the great volunteer organizations. The outpouring with the charitable donations has been incredible, millions of dollars, and I think there's going to be millions of more. So it's a testament to this community here in Surfside, as well as the greater Miami-Dade area, and as well as Florida and the United States, because people from all across the country have been involved in that. So those recovery efforts from the family of helping them get back on their feet, helping them cope with trauma, that's going to be ongoing. And this is something that's going to require community involvement, local government, state government, and FEMA for a while, and we're in that for the long haul. The final thing is, of course, rescue number one, care for the people that have been displaced number two, but we do obviously need to identify why this happened. I was able to meet with the NIST folks today, and they were created after 9/11. They've done a handful of really thorough investigations since their creation. 9/11, they did Joplin, Missouri, from the tornadoes. They're doing Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. They did a Rhode Island nightclub fire that happened almost 20 years ago. And so they've never done just a straight building collapse that wasn't involved with either hazards or terrorism. And so this is going to be something that's important. It is something that's going to be very thorough, and it is something that is not going to happen in a day or two. This is going to take a long time. That's the time horizon they work on, and I understand that. What I've told Mayor Burkett in Surfside, as well as Mayor Cava, because Surfside has retained people to look in, and then obviously Miami-Dade with the state attorney, they're doing an investigation. I think those investigations may be able to provide us with some information maybe a little sooner than an NIST, and I think that's important because if there are things that need to be done at the state level, we obviously would want to get information as soon as possible. And so we pledge at the state, if they need support from engineers, from experts, whatever we need, whether it's Surfside, Miami-Dade, we're here to help. I think the people of Florida want to understand how could this happen, and then what could we do to make sure it doesn't happen again. And so we'll be working on that for the long term. But in the interim, thank you for everybody who's going through that rubble. Thank you for being on the front lines for us. Your work is very, very important, and it's been very, very selfless.
Thank you, Governor. And now Lieutenant Governor Janet Nunez.
Thank you. Good morning. I'll reiterate what the governor said in Spanish. Queremos agradecerle a los grupos, los equipos de búsqueda y rescate que siguen.
We're now listening to Lieutenant Governor Janet Nunez recapping in Spanish what Governor Ron DeSantis just mentioned. But before this, they began with Congresswoman Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who says that they had just met with an agency called NIST, which was actually built or created after 9/11. They are embedded with the task force to make sure that all the evidence stays intact so they can investigate exactly how this happened, why this happened, and it will not happen again.
Yeah, and the governor also talked a lot about that agency. Again, NIST, that stands for the National Institute of Standards and Technology. Again, as we just mentioned, they investigated 9/11, but everything from tornadoes to Hurricane Maria. The governor did mention, though, this would be the first time, and this is so important, that they're investigating a disaster like this, not involved with a natural disaster or hazard or terrorism. So he said this is going to take a long time, but did pledge that everything our area needs on the state level from engineers and experts will be provided here to help, because of course there's a lot of short-term concerns as that NIST investigation is going to take a long time. Representative Wasserman Schultz also emphasized to the importance, we've been talking a lot about forensics. She brought up the importance of being able to preserve that evidence, which is why it's so important those experts got here as early as they did, embedding themselves with our task force to preserve everything from the debris to whatever they can find on the ground there. There's going to be a lot of questions around the structural damage. Of course, we've all been talking about how this could happen, and the representative mentioning this is the question that she keeps thinking about as well. And again, making sure it starts early, because this is going to be a long-term long-term situation, but also, like the governor, pledging help from the federal level, and that legislation or whatever changes that are needed to be made from the federal level will happen to make sure that a structure like this will never have to see this type of catastrophe again.
And again, we have to keep in mind there are still 152 unaccounted for, and while they investigated, it's so important for them to keep the evidence intact, and that's why this agency came in when they did. Joining us now is Jim DeFede. Jim, you're with us?
I'm with you. Yes, Maribel.
So let's talk about and let's go over what Debbie Wasserman Schultz was saying, as well as the governor, and the importance of this agency while they begin and have already begun their investigation.
No, absolutely. And what you're going to see is you are going to see a very thorough investigation from a number of different agencies. The Miami-Dade Police Department will take the lead because people have died, so it's a homicide investigation. So you will see them do that. But the long-term engineering impacts are also important, and that has to be acknowledged, and they'll start figuring that out. And I think we're going to get another speaker here in a second, so I'll let you go back to the press conference, but we can pick up on this when we return.
Here we are, day 5. And the search and rescue work continued throughout the night, 24/7, the tireless work of our first responders. These are truly the men and women who have dedicated their lives to saving lives, and this is what they live for, to save lives. So they're out there with every resource that they need to ensure that they can search this area, they can sweep the mound with cameras, with dogs, with sonar, and additional heavy machinery that has come in to start to clear away the debris. We are exploring all possible avenues that they identify. And we're going to continue and work ceaselessly to exhaust every possible option in our search. I repeat, the search and rescue operation continues. As the governor and the Congresswoman said, and the Lieutenant Governor, there is going to be a thorough and full investigation of what led to this tragic event. We are going to get to the bottom of what happened here. Right now, our top priority is search and rescue and find the people. And you can see we have a truly unprecedented mobilization effort underway with the full resources of our local, state, and federal government on hand already, for days already, and people coming in from around the state and around the world to assist us right here in Surfside. I am so grateful to all of the leaders and all of the teams, and especially those who are up on the mound and putting their own lives at risk to find others. This morning, we did recover another body. That brings the count to 10. The total number of those accounted for is now 135, and the total unaccounted, 151. Our detectives are working in real time right now to audit this list. We're receiving multiple calls still from family members about the same loved ones, and the information is coming from various sources. I want to stress, as we have from the beginning, these numbers are very fluid and they will continue to change. I want to provide you, as we have done and will do, the best updates as soon as we have them. Remembering that we've told the families that are waiting that they will be the first to hear, and they were the first to hear about this 10th victim that we uncovered today. So we will continue to support all of the families and loved ones who are affected with their mental health, their social service, their physical needs. They have professionals on site, a full gamut in the Family Assistance Center. The Miami Foundation, one of those that launched the donation site, is also on site to assist these families with the cash assistance they need to get on with their lives as well. And we know that, as was said, millions have been collected across these different donation sites It's really quite incredible. So please continue to pray for the families, continue to pray for the search and rescue team, the best in the world. We have hundreds on backup. We have the people we need. We are continuing without stop. Thank you and God bless. La búsqueda y rescate continúa.
We're listening to a press conference out of Surfside. There you see Mayor Danilo Levine Cava speaking to the media in Spanish. But the latest information that we got, and it's something that we've all been waiting for, is the numbers, updated numbers. Well, she just confirmed that one other body was found, bringing the total now to 10 deceased, 151 unaccounted for, and 135 accounted for. She said they're working around the clock, exhausting every resource possible, and they're doing all they can to find these people, to find these survivors. She also mentioned that the family was told first. Yeah, and we do want to check in with Jim DeFede again. Jim, are you there?
I'm here.
So the death toll, just going with the numbers, as you mentioned earlier, it's now day 5, over 100 hours. The death toll went from 1 to 5 to 9 and now to 10. These number updates we're not getting very quickly. Do you see this? Do you see this being the case, you know, for the next few weeks or even longer? Because this agonizing process for family members is obviously what we're thinking about here.
I think that the reality is that we need to stop thinking about it in terms of recovering bodies and recovering DNA matter, recovering pieces of bodies. The reason why you're seeing very few intact bodies being removed from the rubble is because of the nature of that collapse. You can just sort of see what happened. And so this is going to be a very time-consuming process. I think that it may be weeks, if not months, before all of the families actually have an answer with regard to if their loved ones or any elements of their loved ones was found within that rubble. This is going to be an excruciating process. You have to remember, when the World Trade Centers came down, you know, I will tell you that a longtime friend of mine, a kid I grew up with and went to school with, he died in the towers. They never recovered anything of his remains. Now, I think in this case, they will find elements, and literally elements, and that the DNA testing that they've been taking from family members will help them have that sort of closure, but that testing will take time as well.
And also, Jim, we have to keep in mind all the elements that they've been dealing with. Yesterday and the day before, they were dealing with the fires, then the weather not cooperating, but they were saying this is going to be a very slow process. And the governor said, even the group that came in from Israel to help with the search and rescue, they told the families and they assured them that we have the very best of the best here in Miami-Dade, the search and urban rescue team. They are doing everything they can. They're doing everything right, but it's a very difficult situation.
Yeah, and Jim, do you think we're going to continue seeing press conferences in this pattern where we kind of have one in the afternoon and then one before noon? Or do you think we may stop hearing as many updates? Because, of course, they want to show, hey, we're trying to give you updates, right? But as you mentioned, it may be slow and we may not be getting them as much.
I think that they will continue to do updates, you know, especially in the coming days. One thing I will say, I know that there's been a lot of criticism from family about not seeing a lot of work take place on top of a pile in those initial first day or so. And what I will tell you is, and I think we're going to get another speaker here at the press conference, so we can come back to this in a second, but, you know, there is a reason why you didn't see a lot of activity at the top of the pile.
He's been leading since day one. Mayor, your staff, amazing. The folks of Miami-Dade County, the resilience that they've provided. This is an international issue, as we've seen support come from the federal, international community. I'm the state's chief financial officer. I'm also the state fire marshal, also a citizen of the state of Florida. Proud to be here with the urban search and rescue men and women of task forces that are assigned here. This is the largest ever deployment of task force resources in the history of the state of Florida that's not a hurricane. The same number of men and women that are on the ground right now is the same as that was deployed to Hurricane Michael, which is a 12-county storm event. They're working around the clock. They're working 12 hours at a time, midnight to noon, noon to midnight. They come from Tallahassee, they come from Orlando, they come from Tampa, they come from Israel, they come from Mexico, they come from Jacksonville, they come from Fort Myers. They come and they leave their families to come and work around the clock. Their reward is the life they save. They are making the efforts as we speak right now, and they don't stop. They hardly rest. They come off for about 45 minutes, they check their pulse, they check their O2 levels, and they go back to work, because that's what they do. They work to save lives. I've got the honor to be here with them, and so proud of the efforts that are taking place here. I can't say enough for the leadership of Kevin Guthrie and Florida Department of Emergency Management, for FEMA. They have provided, as they know the magnitude of this event. This came from a camp, and now we've created a city inside of a city, several blocks, and we appreciate all the patience that the communities have had here in the region as we do the most amazing efforts in the history of the state of Florida to save the lives at risk because of this terrible tragedy. Governor, thank you for your leadership. Mayor.
Thank you, Chief. And now from the Florida Division of Emergency Management, Kevin Guthrie.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Kevin Guthrie, Florida Division of Emergency Management Director. Yesterday at about 4:15 yesterday afternoon, Mayor Cava and Chief Kaminsky asked for the assistance of a federal incident support team specifically related to urban search and rescue. FEMA was in the room at the exact same time. The informal communication of that request happened in minutes, so that request was sent up and mobilized, and we have followed up with the necessary paperwork. So again, I think it's important for everyone to understand that as soon as Mayor Cava, Chief Kaminsky, Director Ramirez need a resource, we're sitting together, we're working together underneath the leadership of the governor, the lieutenant governor, Mayor Cava, and others to make sure that that happens instantly. Again, as Congresswoman said, there is no daylight in between either one of us. So I think that's important for everyone to know. I will say that we also are mobilizing today a Florida DHS&B bus to help people get ID cards for those that have been displaced. They need ID cards, driver's licenses, and things of that nature. Those will be that bus will be deployed today. Should be here on site tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you, Director. And now the Surfside Mayor, Charles Burkett.
I just have a handful of things I want to share with you. First was this morning I was at the site, and I observed hundreds of search and rescue people actively using their hands, digging out, and doing what they're here to do. I also observed the heavy equipment that the governor and the federal government have sent down to us in action, lifting off huge slabs and moving them away from the pile. Secondly, I visited with the families again this morning, as did everybody probably standing here, and we heard from the Israeli team that is here, and one of the things I wanted to note was that the Israeli commander told us that the teams that are out there working are working fabulously together. There's a joint effort, there's camaraderie, and everybody has the same goal, and that's to pull people out of there. He also added that the intensity and the numbers will continue to increase, which I was very interested to hear. Thirdly, I want to make everybody aware that there has been some discussion about why this happened, and that is, as the Mayor Cava said and the Governor said, that's an issue for another day, because right now we have two issues. Number one is to pull our family and friends out of that rubble and reunite them. Number two is to support the families. But to the end, with respect to the information, I've directed our staff to go ahead and scan every shred of documentation that the town of Surfside has, which includes going to our archive storage sites. We've got boxes, and we're sending those boxes to a printing scanning company, and those documents will be available for your review. I know you've seen some documents already, and again, I haven't had a chance to watch the news because we're sort of in the midst of this disaster, all of us. I don't know that anybody else has a chance to watch the news either, but I learn of stuff from you guys, and I'm able to follow up on it. But most recent are a couple disturbing comments that I saw regarding minutes, board minutes at the Champlain South Towers with respect to some of our officials in town. But be that as it may, we will get to the bottom of it. Last comment I want to make is late last night I had toured, and this is on the personal side, I had toured the site as I normally do. Usually I'm there 3 times a day, in the morning, in the afternoon, and the evening. And I came across a little girl. She's about 11 or 12 years old. And I had seen this little girl before, and I know because she was with her mom and we had talked. And she may have been with her dad, I'm not quite sure, but one of her parents was in that building at the time of the collapse. And the other parent lives a couple buildings away. And she told me she goes back and forth. When I came across her, she was sitting in a chair by herself with nobody around her, looking at her phone. And I knelt down and I asked her, I said, "So what are you doing? Are you okay?" And she said, "Yes." And she said something. And what she was telling me, it was a Jewish prayer. But she was reading a Jewish prayer to herself, sitting at the site by where one of her parents presumably is. And that really brought it home to me. And she wasn't crying, she was just lost. She didn't know what to do, what to say, who to talk to. And I was looking for her this morning at that family meeting and I didn't see her, but I am going to find her and I'm going to tell her that we're all here for her and we're going to do the best we can to bring out that parent. So anyway, it's horrific. This is disturbing, but that is just a tiny, tiny example of the impact that this collapse has had on our community. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Now MiamiDade Commission Chairman Jose Villalobos.
Mayor, that story is the story of so many that are in this situation right now. The families we met with, the mayor and I this morning, the pain in their face, their expressions, it's not unlike anything I've seen before. It is very difficult to know that your loved one could still be alive and have the hope to believe that, and at the same time, just sit there and wait for that information to get to you. That's got to be one of the most difficult things that anybody could endure. And these people are doing it now, as the governor said, 100 hours since this took place. But the hope is there because the very best team in the world started early because they are part of this community. So are one. And many have come, as the CFO stated, to come and help. Many more still could come as needed. So this community is blessed. These people are blessed that we have the kind of people that know what they're doing. They're the very best at what they do, and they're doing it nonstop. Rain, whatever comes in the way, they don't stop and they'll continue. So it is about them. That is who this is about. And we pray for them. We're constantly having hope, and we're begging God for that hope for them. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is what my colleagues and I have been doing here, making sure that whatever is needed on our behalf is done so. Our mission not here right now, it's just helping, but it will come later when we have to deal with the problems of how this happened and how we can make sure that this never happens again.